Parents used to tell me all the time, take ice out of the ice cube tray, fill the whole tray up so that it's better for the next guy. And I think that's the way most conservatives view the world. You look at the rallies that have been held on the National Mall in Washington, and it's cleaner when the Tea Party leaves than when it began. Look what happened when the One Nation rally took place this weekend. It was trashed. So there are hypocrites out there speaking on the Green Movement behalf. Be aware of these people. Expose them and expose your children to the truth. Our next speaker is going to do that for us. Randy Walters from Coal-Fed Families. He's going to speak on the fraud of the environmental movement. Please welcome him to the stage.
Great crowd, great, wonderful crowd. I'd feel a lot more comfortable if I were picking my bass guitar up here doing some bluegrass music, but I guess that's out of the question today. So we'll get down to what's going on. Last night we talked about people wanting to centralize our populations. In the 1990s, I found that on a map, a United Nations environmental projection for the United States. I don't know if it's still posted, but you can find, if it is, you'll see where this idea is all coming from, and if they have their way, we'll all be living in the central part of the nation where the NAFTA highway is being built. It comes right into the area that it's all been planned out and laid out for us, and we weren't paying attention. I wrote stories about that in our newspaper that I owned at that time, and people thought I was a nut. They thought I was a crackpot for doing that. I want to first thank Pastor Jeff Fugit of the Clays Mill Road Baptist Church in Lexington. He made a lot of contacts for our people in the coal fields possible. And bless his heart, had it not been for him, I wouldn't be here today. He helped us get everything rolling with Coal-Fed Families. And also want to thank my buddy over here, Mike Combs. He started the East Kentucky Tea Party. And called me up and said, we got to get something going here in the mountains because there's nothing happening, and we got to make it happen if we're going to. And let me tell you right now, Rand Paul is 13 percentage points ahead of Jack Conman Conway in eastern Kentucky. Now we're talking about a Democrat stronghold, and Rand Paul is 13 points ahead. Hello? The miners are saying, no, we're not going down with this bunch. And for Pastor Jerry Stevenson, I'm from Perry County. This week, I don't know, you might have seen it in the newspapers, the ACT fraud in the Perry County school system. This was over 220 students that were helped along, as it might be, with their ACT tests. And yes, those students should have the right, those parents should have the right to take those students to any other school to get them out of this corrupted mess that exists there. And I'm sure it exists in other schools throughout this state because our system of education is broken, and the way we do things, it's all just a mess. It's broken. Phil Moffitt has a great plan for that. He's a good man, and we are already behind him for what he's doing and what he's saying because it makes sense to us in the coal fields. His idea of state sovereignty and being able to tell the EPA to get off our backs and just shut up. We did not give you regulatory powers in Kentucky. Our state mine inspectors can very well do the same jobs without the redundancy and double red tape that the federal brings into it. Now I'm going to give you an example of what's going on right now that is really threatening to kill the coal fields. And it's called water conductivity. All it is the amount of electricity the water will conduct. They measure that in microohms per centimeter. Now 300 is the level the EPA is wanting, and 500 microohms per centimeter is the cutoff point. The amount is increased as there are minerals added to the water. 500 is the cutoff point. And I brought this to show you. We have a biologist at Coal-Fed Families. We're fortunate. He has his own testing lab. His son was drinking this stuff the other night, And he said, well, I got to thinking I'll just go test that stuff and see what it's Propel energy drink. 500's a cutoff for the coal mines, okay? This is over 1,200 microohms per centimeter. Over 1,200, and we bought this out of a convenience store on the way up. The one thing you can't do with it is take it to a mine site in eastern Kentucky and pour it out on the ground. You have gone in violation of everything, and the tree huggers all across the nation are going to go crazy if somebody does a test on it. That's what we're up against. These are rules and regulations that the EPA has come up with at the urging of the environmental movement to shut down the coal industry. And they are not things that are founded in scientific studies. The one study they're using is the pond study, and it contradicts itself and even says at the end of the study these results may or may not be true. And all of it is to protect the mayfly. So don't let a mayfly get around a bottle of Propel. It would surely just fall over dead. That's what we're up against, and the EPA is doing this stuff without congressional approval. They are writing rules, changing the Clean Air and Clean Water Act limits themselves, and attacking the Eastern Kentucky and West Virginia coal industries, and shutting them down and causing problems with permits. I was in the nuclear business in the 70s, in the nuclear industry as a testing person with non-destructive testing. In the 1970s, the environmental movement, our sane greenies, were there with the no nuke movement, and they killed the nuclear industry. They killed it. There have been no permits issued for years as a result of people like Art Garfunkel, Jackson Brown, and those folks who led the charge against nuclear power. Now, the nuclear reactors that we have in this country are built to last 40 years. That means that right now, these reactors that provide a great deal of the power for our country are nearing the end of their life cycle. So what's going to happen? We're going to do the only logical thing, shut down the coal. Isn't that what we do? All right. All of the wind and solar power in the United States produces the energy equivalent of only one coal mine. One. So that's not going to do it for us. And they're going to shut this down in eastern Kentucky and in West Virginia because it's the most efficient coal in the nation. If you get coal from out west, it takes 2 tons to equal the heat that 1 ton of our coal produces. That's why we have GE here in Louisville, low electric rates. That's why we have Toyota in Georgetown, and we have Ford. Now, when those electric rates go up as a result of what the EPA is doing, don't worry about them passing cap and trade. The EPA has already proclaimed they're putting all of this into effect on their own. They don't need anybody to tell them what they can and can't do. They've got Obama, and he's letting them go. So they're shutting things down, and they're going to cause this power increases, and you can watch what will happen if it does. That will mean that GE will not just leave Kentucky, they will move their people to China. Toyota, they'll leave, and so will Ford. So that coal industry in eastern Kentucky and in West Virginia that is being attacked by the Obama administration through the EPA is going to affect everybody's job in this part of the country as well, not just ours. And don't let the environmentalists tell you that it's just a few thousand jobs in eastern Kentucky. It's every job in eastern Kentucky. The insurance man wouldn't be selling any policies if the coal miner wasn't buying them for his car. They wouldn't be selling any homes, and I have yet to see anybody in eastern Kentucky with an unemployment check buy a new